The owner and chairman of World Wrestling Entertainment, Mr. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, made a very rare interview appearance on the Pat McAfee Show this week. Full, long-form, in-depth, sat down for a little over an hour, closer to an hour and a half, I want to say. And it was just shooting the shit. It was just kind of a bunch of dudes sitting around talking. There was nothing groundbreaking going on in this conversation. We didn't really unveil any new major layer to the Vince McMahon person that we know and love. He wasn't really asked any super hard-hitting questions or anything like that. There's no real news to break other than, of course, the Undertaker. He did say that he's going to be inducting the Undertaker into the Hall of Fame, which I also called last week. I believe that was on last week's show. I said that he should do that, right? Maybe the week before. I don't remember. They all blend in at this point. And that he was giving Pat McAfee a match at WrestleMania. But all of that made the headlines. You've heard all of that. This was very newsworthy in that sense. Everybody wanted to kind of drop those bombs out on the internet. But one of the things that isn't getting talked about as much is what Vince McMahon had to say in regards to all of this talent that's been being released lately. When I say that Pat didn't quite ask all the hard-hitting questions, this was one that definitely was a little bit further, a little bit closer to that hard-hitting, tough journalistic type question. But of course, Vince just tiptoed around it and gave a typical Vince McMahon answer. Check this out.
People always assume that you just have no heart and you do not care at all about any of these people. Then there's podcasts that happen. Each one of those decisions that you make, whether it's to release somebody or, by the way, push somebody or keep somebody, how much weight, are any of those decisions more difficult than others, or is it just always what will make the best show in your eyes?
I'm always concerned about what's best for the audience. Always. What does the audience want? Once I took the company public, it helped me be a better businessman, because prior to that I was running the business mostly with my head, but mostly with my heart as well. And these decisions are so damn tough when you do that. Because who it is, he has kids or this and that and the other, or somebody has cancer in the family or whatever it is, and all that computes in your head, when but once you're a public company, now, you owe stockholders.
You owe the business.
That's right. It is the business then. So it helps me make easier business and better business decisions, because my heart, there's still some of it in there, but I know it sounds all of it. There is, but at the same time, it's business.
Very dismissive of it in general. I feel like you definitely get the vibe that he separates himself from the talent in that way. And, he made it clear. He kind of said, once the company went public, he said he used to make a lot of his decisions based on just the relationship he had with the person. Do they have a family? They got kids? Is somebody sick in the family? Blah, 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 right? He knew everybody on a personal level. This is when guys were going to his house and everything like that as well. Once it went corporate, things were different, and he kind of treated it as such. And he separated himself from the people, from the personalities. No hard feelings, it's just business. This has been Vince McMahon's thing. Look, man, you don't need to cut that many people when you're making record profits, and you don't need to say, it's not always just what's right for the business, because, that's a load of crap. He doesn't listen to the fans. He said that a couple times. He even busted out his trademark, we got a focus group every night. You don't listen to his fans. But there were a lot of little gems that came out of this podcast that really just shed light on Vince McMahon, the man. And I'll say this. This was a great interview. I thought Pat did an amazing job. I felt like he got a lot out of Vince. He kept Vince engaged. You can tell that Vince likes Pat McAfee. First of all, just by the fact that, like was said, Pat said that Vince is barely ever in his ear at all. Like hardly tells him anything. Just basically lets him be him. And he's standing up at his desk like he does on his show and everything. He gets all hyped and into it, and he can't stay in his chair. It's just a McAfeeism. And Vince lets him have his McAfeeisms. He doesn't try to conform him to a corporate structure. And it's so strange because he does do that with his play-by-play guys, right? You know, your Michael Cole. Michael Cole's a goddamn robot. He's the best, one of the best, if not the best robot there ever was in the business, but he's a robot. Remember Todd Phillips? He was a robot. All these guys are robots that get plugged into this chair, but the color guys he kind of seems to leave alone. Like JR always talked about how Vince was always screaming in his ear, but Jay the King never got any fucking, Vince never said anything to him ever. So I don't know if it's just Vince is very specific about how he wants his play-by-play guy to be, but the color guy is just that. He's color. Just let him be color. You know, you either like the color or you don't, but let him be color. Or is it just kind of based on if Vince likes you or not? Vince clearly likes Pat. You know, Vince we've always heard, is a very jocular guy. You know, always like one of the boys kind of guy. And you could tell just in that interview, you know, there's a very jocular, hanging out with the boys vibe to the whole thing. And Vince felt right at home and, you know, owned the room, of course, as a Vince McMahon would do. But seems to really enjoy Pat. And you know, Pat does a great job. Pat did a great job on this interview. Pat does a great job in WWE as a color commentator. Pat's a great personality for wrestling, and I hope he has longevity there. He seems happy. Vince seems happy with him. Lots of little gems, though, just little quirks in Vince McMahon. Just the way he would say things. Here's another thing. I say. Here's another little thing I'll throw out there is anybody that says Vince is senile or lost it at this point, he might be out of touch because he's old and just doesn't have his finger on the pulse of what's cool anymore. But even that came up in the conversation where it's been said that Vince kind of delegates to people that know what's cool because he doesn't know what's cool, and he's self-aware enough to know that he doesn't know what the kids are into these days. What I was going to say is he does not strike me as senile. He's not losing he's not Joe Biden up there fucking just losing his train of thought every 3 seconds and shit. Right? He knows he's very cognizant, he's very sharp, he's very smart. He knows how to answer questions in a professional way that can kind of tiptoe around things when they are touchier subjects, like the released talent. And, you know, him saying things like dead weight, though, it's Vince, though, right? And saying that nobody knows how to look in the mirror, and they always got to have the guy to blame. I think that's true to a certain extent. I think a lot of people do that. They do it. But, you know, and Vince is an easy guy to blame because the way that he decides things on a whim. And Pat kind of tried to ask him about that a couple times. You know, he's like, do you just decide something and just because you just get laser focused on it because you're so strong-willed? And what he's really trying to say is you get these hairs up your ass and you just go with things. And you don't necessarily care, you know, that there was a whole script written already 3 times and nope, we're changing it. But Vince seems sharp as fuck. You know, I'll challenge anybody that says they feel he's losing it. Out of touch, maybe yes, but losing mental sharpness, no. It's so fascinating listening to a guy like Vince talk. especially for long periods of time like that in an interview setting. He doesn't do many of them. They're few and far between, and they're all gems. You know, like if you sit down and listen to a Vince McMahon interview, you know, there's the one from On the Record, right? Or was it Off the Record? Whatever that show's called, the Canadian show up there, that did a lot of wrestler interviews in the Attitude Era-ish. Vince did that one. He did the ones, the one where he's interviewed with Bob Costas and he's slapping papers out of people's hands, and he's Vince. You know, he's half putting on a show, half just being the Vince that he is. You know, there was even a part in this interview where, you know, Pat asks him to, like, you know, adjust the microphone or sit down or do something like that. And Vince's like, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. I'm not going to take orders from you. Pat's like, yes, sir. Sorry, sir. You're absolutely right, sir. It was cool because Pat seemed very comfortable around Vince too. And it gave me the impression that in the way Vince would talk about things, like if somebody's late for a meeting, you know, like it's annoying enough that you're late, that you're walking in, but then people feel the need to explain themselves. Oh, sorry, I was, and then I got cut off and there was an accident and a plane crash. And like, I get Vince. I feel like I understand. I think I'd get along with Vince. I really do. I think he's a no bullshit guy. He likes it straight. He likes guys that aren't afraid to give it to him straight. He likes guys that aren't intimidated by him, but respect him and listen to him at the same time. I could just tell by the way, you know, he seemed really like Pat, and just the way Pat talked to him. Pat talked to him like a dude, but respected him at the same time. It was just so interesting. And Vince, he's a little bit harder to listen to nowadays. He's very grumbly and softer. He's losing his voice. But an absolute gem that you gotta go out of your way. Like, nothing I'm gonna say here is gonna do it justice, you know, and I can't just sit and like go blow by blow recap the whole thing. But there's just lots of great stuff in here, you know. He talks about, you know, making the switch to the networks, and talks about keeping smart people around him and listening, and I think, you know, Nick Khan obviously would be the one he's referring to in those situations. You know, he was a big part of that network deal to Peacock and that sort of thing. But go out of your way to just, it's on YouTube, it's free, it doesn't cost you anything. Go out of your way to watch this show. Watch Vince, listen to the full interview. It's a little over an hour. You'll be happy you did. Like I said, you're not going to break any new ground. You're not going to learn anything necessarily that you didn't know before, but it's entirely fascinating anyway, because Vince is just such a weird human being. And he admits it. He admits that he's not normal, that he's wired different, and, you know, that he works all the time because he doesn't consider it work. So it's just what he does for fun. And yeah, just great shit. Great shit. Always great shit with Vince McMahon. The utmost respect for that man. And Pat McAfee, great show. When he's not talking sports ball anyway.